Hey friends, this is Abby with Abby's Musings, where I'm committed to providing you with doses of motivation and positivity through 90 seconds in the Word. Listen, your girl did not forget about you, but when I got back into town, it seems like my body took a real hit for like really 2 days. So I jumped in just on August 1st to say something and honestly was feeling really run down. And I like to do these videos, in real time so that I can speak to current events and they're not all pre-recorded. So, but I may have to look into doing some recording ahead of time so we're not missing days. Our verse of today comes from Ephesians 6:12. And it's one that I'm going to really encourage you to get very familiar with, to meditate, to memorize, because it's good to remember in just navigating this world. It comes from Ephesians 6:12, and it says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood." Some versions say, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against powers of this dark world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." That verse is to just remind us that in the same way we have a great power that is working for us, that there's a power that works against us. Now, it doesn't mean that we walk around in fear because the enemy has been defeated. But the ways in which he continues to operate in our lives are often in our thoughts. It's often through other people, through misconceptions, through so many things. And I'm not saying that everything that goes wrong or every time a problem or a challenge comes up, that it's the enemy. It's just to remind you that there's an enemy of the soul. It doesn't mean that every time something goes wrong or things don't work out as you would like, that it's the enemy. If we can be honest that there are times things fall apart by our own actions, by our own sin, by us taking matters into our own hands and going down a path that God has not ordained, or it comes from straight disobedience. But I'm talking about those times when you're trying. And I'll be transparent. I'm in a season right now that I feel a bit at a crossroads, and I might have mentioned it before. And I don't want to get ahead of God. And the doors that I keep knocking on are not opening, but I have to remember that there's something greater at work. Is it the enemy maybe causing frustration in me? I could allow it to. Are the doors being closed because God is protecting me from something? Possibly. But during this waiting season and during this time of what I'm calling like an in-between, if I allow the enemy to distract me so much that I go off of God's plan, if I allow the enemy to continue to speak into my heart and my soul and I decide to believe all those negative things, then I'll completely go off track. Then even when the blessings does come, I will have a hard time even seeing the blessing because my vision and my heart would have been so distorted. So those times when I feel really low and really just frustrated, honestly, sometimes to the point of anger, that I have to remember that there's something greater at work. And if I can believe that there's something greater at work in God, which I know that it's true, I have to remember that there's something greater that's working opposite of that. So the person, the manager, if she does something that's completely wrong, or the family member that seems to be acting crazy, or a friend that does something spiteful that you don't understand, we want to be able to look bigger and open up our hearts and open up our minds, and to remember that our wrestle is not always against the person that's right in front of us. It's not always against flesh and blood. It takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a whole lot of God to open up our eyes to see a situation, especially if it involves a person and we feel like we're being personally attacked, to remember that there's something greater at work. So I'm just asking that you join me in this journey, and that we often take a different look and a different perspective at situations that we're in. Not saying it's easy, not saying that we can't always hold people accountable, but we have to remember that truly at the end of the day, our fight is not against flesh and blood. All right? Ephesians 6:12. Let's try and remember that. Have a blessed day. I'll talk to you soon.